They laughed at his shoes first, scuffed at the toes, soles slightly peeling. The kind of shoes that had lasted 2 school years too long. It was freshman year at Crestmont Academy, a private school where parking lot cars cost more than most houses. And in the middle of it all stood Elijah Carter, quiet, observant, wearing a uniform that didn't quite fit like the others. He had earned his place there on a full academic scholarship, but to some of his classmates, he was just the poor kid who didn't belong. They thought they had 4 years to remind him of that. What they didn't know was that graduation day would remind them of something else. Elijah lived on the east side of the city. Small apartment. 1 bedroom he shared with his younger sister, Nia. His mother, Renee Carter, worked as a nursing assistant on overnight shifts. Elijah studied at the kitchen table, while his sister slept on the couch. He didn't complain. He didn't ask for more. He just worked. When the letter came from Crestmont Academy, full scholarship, tuition covered, his mother cried at the sink. "This is your door," she told him. He walked through it alone. On the first day, students arrived in tailored blazers and polished loafers. Elijah arrived by city bus. He stepped onto campus carrying a backpack that had been stitched at the zipper. A group of boys leaned against a sleek black SUV in the drop-off lane. Landon Pierce, Bryce Holloway, Chase Monroe, legacy students, trust fund families, country club summers. Landon looked Elijah up and down. "New scholarship kid?" he asked casually. Bryce smirked. "Probably." Chase nudged Landon. "Bet he won't last a semester." Elijah heard them, but he kept walking. He had learned early that silence preserved energy. The bullying didn't start loud. It started small. Snickers during class presentations. Whispers about thrift store uniforms. A group chat he wasn't invited to. One afternoon in economics class, Landon leaned over. "Hey, Carter," he whispered. "Is it true your mom cleans houses?" Elijah didn't respond. Bryce added, "Must be nice getting charity tuition." The teacher continued lecturing. Elijah wrote notes carefully, because he understood something they didn't. Temporary embarrassment is cheaper than permanent ignorance. Sophomore year, the school announced a regional science competition. Winner receives internship placement and a feature in the state academic journal. Elijah spent months building a low-cost water filtration prototype, designed specifically for under-resourced communities. Meanwhile, Landon's group hired a private consultant to polish their robotics project. On presentation day, Elijah stood beside his display. Landon walked past and muttered, "Save the world later, Carter. Some of us are building real futures." Judges spent longer at Elijah's table than anyone expected. They asked detailed questions. He answered each with calm precision. When results were announced, first place, Elijah Carter. The applause felt polite. Landon's smile looked forced, but the teasing didn't stop. It evolved. Junior year brought SAT prep, college tours, early admissions pressure. One afternoon, Elijah opened his locker to find something inside, a crumpled piece of paper, written in thick black marker. "You don't belong here." Below it, someone had drawn a bus. He stared at it for a long time. For the first time in 4 years, he felt tired, not angry, tired. He folded the paper neatly, put it in his backpack, and went to class, because quitting would prove them right. Mrs. Alvarez, his history teacher, noticed a change. "You seem distracted lately," she said after class. He hesitated, then handed her the folded note. Her jaw tightened. "Do you know who did this?" He shook his head. She sighed. "Elijah, you don't have to endure this alone." He looked at her quietly. "I don't want pity," he said. She nodded slowly. "Good," she replied, "because what you deserve is respect." She began mentoring him closely. College essays, leadership programs, national scholarship submissions. She didn't fight his battles for him. She sharpened his sword. By senior year, Elijah ranked first in his class academically. Landon ranked 7th. College acceptance letters began arriving. Landon bragged loudly about his father's connections. Bryce flaunted early acceptance to a private business school. Chase planned to join his uncle's firm. Elijah stayed quiet. Then one morning, Mrs. Alvarez called him to her office. A large envelope lay on her desk. Embossed seal. He opened it carefully. Full scholarship. Prestigious Ivy League university. Room. Board. Research stipend. She smiled. You earned it. He thought about the bus rides, the notes in his locker, the laughter. He folded the letter slowly. They won't believe it, he said softly. She smiled again. They don't have to. The gymnasium glittered with decorations. Parents filled the stands. Camera flashes popped. Landon's family occupied an entire row. Elijah's mother sat near the top, holding a borrowed camera. Valedictorian announcement approached. Principal Harding adjusted the microphone. This year's valedictorian has demonstrated exceptional academic excellence, resilience, and leadership. Pause. Elijah Carter. Gasps rippled. Landon's smile froze. Elijah walked to the podium slowly. The same podium where he once presented science projects alone. He adjusted the microphone, looked out at his classmates, and began. When I arrived here 4 years ago, he said calmly, I learned something quickly. Not everyone measures worth the same way. The gym quieted. Some measure it by the car you step out of. Some measure it by the neighborhood you come from. He paused. But education measures something else. He looked toward the section where Landon sat. It measures what you build when no one is watching. Silence. I was told I didn't belong here. A few teachers stiffened. But belonging isn't granted by comfort. It's earned by contribution. He held up his graduation cap. And every one of us had to contribute something to get here. He didn't name names. He didn't accuse. He didn't shame. He elevated. 4 years ago, I arrived by bus. He smiled faintly. Today, I leave prepared to build systems that move the world forward. Applause began slowly, then grew, then became a standing ovation. Even some of the boys who once laughed were clapping, because dignity is hard to argue with. After the ceremony, students gathered on the field. Landon approached Elijah awkwardly. Congrats, he muttered. Elijah nodded politely. You been to that Ivy League school? Landon asked. Yes. Landon hesitated. That's impressive. Elijah met his eyes calmly. Hard work usually is. No bitterness. No anger. Just fact. Across the field, his mother hugged him tightly. I'm proud of you, she whispered. He looked around the campus one last time. The lockers, the hallways, the place where they once told him he didn't belong. He didn't need revenge. He didn't need validation. He had something better. Proof. They laughed at his shoes. They mocked his bus rides. They mistook wealth for worth. But graduation day doesn't measure bank accounts. It measures growth. And while they spent 4 years guarding comfort, he spent 4 years building power. Because sometimes the poor kid doesn't just graduate. He leads.